Ever feel like the business world is, well, one giant what could possibly go wrong scenario?
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, today we're going deep, deep, deep into that the wild world of operational risk management, or ORM.
Buckle up.
We've got some really cool stuff lined up today, by the way, straight from, the cybersecurity front lines.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
We're going to be looking at, well, excerpts from this cybersecurity course. It's on Clear's throat, the NIST risk management framework.
Right. NIST, the gold standard.
And then we've got this insightful article from Audit Board, and it gives a, I think, really solid overview of, ORM in action.
Excellent. So listeners can follow along.
Exactly. Now, our mission, if we choose to accept it, which I think we do,
Yeah.
is to unpack what ORM is, why it
Yeah.
matters so much now. Things change so fast.
Right.
And ultimately how companies use it to, well, avoid those big, scary oh-no moments.
And trust me, I've seen it. Those oh no moments can be, well, spectacular, especially when you're talking about, system meltdown, security breaches, all that.
Right, like the whole kit and caboodle just goes dark.
Or worse.
Yeah, that too. So maybe first we should, for anyone new to this, clarify the difference between, let's call them big bang risks, and then the slow burn, two different animals.
I'll make that. Okay, yeah.
So the big bang, those are your classic strategic risks.
Yeah.
Think a company bets the farm on some flashy new product.
Tons of hype. Everyone's on board.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then it tanks completely. Yeah, big bang. Operational risks, though, they're sneakier. It's like, a crack in the foundation of a house.
Okay, I'm listening.
It's the slow burn that can really get you a system failure, suddenly no one can work, or a security breach where all this sensitive data gets out,
Happens all the time.
or
Yeah.
even something as simple as, an employee error. It seems small, but then it snowballs into this huge headache.
Oh, absolutely. And those operational risks, they're tricky because they're often like hiding in plain sight,
Yeah.
until suddenly, bam, there they are, disrupting everything.
So we've got like these little landmines everywhere, these operational risks. How do we even begin to, navigate this minefield?
Well, that's where things get kind of interesting,
Yeah.
Because the NIST framework, that risk management framework we mentioned,
Yeah.
they've got a really practical approach, really relatable, actually. It's
Yeah.
all about layers, right? Like securing your house, your digital house. You've got the alarm system, but you've also got locks on the windows.
Okay, I like this. Walk me through this digital fortress.
All right, so picture three main levels, right? At the very top, it's like setting the house rules,
Yep.
That's the enterprise level or the policy level, the big picture.
So like if my company is super serious about cybersecurity, at the enterprise level, we'd have like a really strict password policy. Everyone has to follow it.
Exactly, that's the house rule. Now, we go down a level, right? And you've got your business areas or processes.
Okay.
So now we're zooming in. It's like each room in the house has its own, purpose and function.
All right, so we're in the finance department, let's say. So processes would be like how they handle invoices, approve expenses.
Exactly. You're defining how that room operates, standard operating procedure. Now, foundation level information systems, now we're getting granular.
Technical.
Technical, yes. The actual,
So still finance, we're talking their accounting software,
Mhm.
encryption, firewalls.
yes. Think the locks on the windows and doors, right? Those essential security measures no one gets in.
I mean, I love this. It's like manageable layers instead of this big, scary risk monster.
And here's where it clicks. The NIST source, they give this great example. So they talk about mitigating the risk of an employee. Let's say his name is Bob, right?
Hey, Bob.
Bob wants to, walk off with some confidential stuff.
Not cool, Bob.
No, not cool at all. So at that top level enterprise, you might have a policy, right? Like a need to know kind of thing. Only give access to who absolutely needs it.
So Bob can't just wander in and...
Exactly, like a lock on the door to your office at home.
Right, okay. But what if Bob is like really good at picking locks?
Okay, so that's where those other layers come in. So business area level. Training. Make sure
Yeah.
Bob, everyone understands data security is important and, the consequences if you mess around.
Like we install a security system, but then we make sure Bob knows how to actually use it.
Yes. But, and this is the thing, even the best security systems, sometimes
Just a flaw. Yeah.
something slips through. So information systems level, now you're talking about the technical safeguards, multi-factor authentication, access control, stuff like that. Bob tries to get
It's
cover.
work. Nope.
It's like this multi-layered defense. You got your policy, your process, the tech stuff. So Bob, he's not getting through that. So we've got this NIST framework, helps organizations manage risk at different levels. But what about ORM specifically? Operational risk management. How does that fit into this whole thing?
Great question. It's like NIST is the bigger picture, right?
Yeah.
The framework applies to pretty much anything.
Yeah. But ORM, you're drilling down to the everyday risks, the stuff that can really, bring your business to a screeching halt if you're not careful.
So it's more like tactical. NIST is the strategy. ORM is how we actually do it.
There you go. And the audit board, the source we're looking at, they got this definition. It's pretty spot on. ORM is risk of loss, right, as a result of. Get this. Ineffective or failed internal processes, people, systems, or external events.
Okay, so like spreadsheets gone haywire, computers melting down.
That's that part of it.
And Bob from earlier makes some questionable choices.
He could be a risk factor.
So how do we avoid all this chaos?
All right, so this is where the guiding principles of ORM come in. And it's all about balance, right? Risk and reward. Because you can't eliminate every single risk.
Right.
It's about, are you willing to accept this risk? What are the benefits if it goes well? Things like that.
So it's a dance a little
Right.
bit. But beyond the numbers, the spreadsheets, how do we factor in like the human element? That seems like a risk all by itself.
You're telling me. Because people, right, they can be your biggest risk, but also your greatest asset.
Hold on, how's that work? People are unpredictable.
Exactly. Unpredictable. Which means they can make things amazing, or they can really mess things up. Remember that story I told you?
Yeah.
About the software rollout?
With the accounting team, they weren't clear on the
Data entry, it was a mess.
huge reporting error.
Right. Oh, yeah, it snowballed. And we thought the software was simple, straightforward, but we messed up the communication, how to actually use it.
The human factor.
Totally. Focused on the tech, forgot about the people, classic operational risk, and it seems so small at the time.
So you're saying we need everyone thinking about risk like it's part of the culture.
100%. Proactive, not reactive. Okay, so how do we actually manage all this?
Right, let's get practical.
Audit Board has this 5-step process, really helpful.
I'm all ears.
First, risk identification. Easy, right? What could go wrong?
Be a detective.
Exactly. Then, risk assessment. Now we're analyzing. How likely is it? How bad if it happens?
Okay.
Now we've got to mitigate, right? Come up with a plan. So you can transfer the risk, avoid it altogether, accept it, or try to reduce the impact.
So transferring, that's like hiring experts,
Right.
okay, instead of doing it ourselves.
Exactly. Outsource it. Or avoid it completely. Like, if the market's too volatile, maybe we don't launch that new product yet.
I see.
Accepting risk. Sometimes the benefits outweigh the downsides, like a new coffee machine. Someone might burn themselves.
Ouch. But good coffee.
Exactly. You document it, you've got safety measures, you accept the risk.
Makes sense.
Then, mitigating. This is where you're actively trying to reduce the chances of it happening. Multi-factor authentication, cybersecurity training, stuff like that.
Love it.
And here's the thing, right? It's not always one or the other. You got to be flexible.
So like, even if we outsource something, there's still things we should be doing ourselves on our end.
Exactly. Or we accept a risk, but we have controls in place if it does happen. It's dynamic.
It's about finding that sweet spot, right? Not being reckless, but also not being so afraid that we never try anything new.
100%. And that's why the next 2 steps are so important. Control implementation. We actually put those mitigation plans into action.
So not just talking about it, we're actually doing the work.
Doing the work. And monitoring. We keep an eye on things. Are the controls working? Do we need to adapt?
Stay vigilant.
Always. Because the world of operational risk, it never stops evolving. New technology, new threats. You have to stay ahead of the game.
I think that's a great takeaway for our listeners. ORM, it's not just about checking boxes, it's about building a culture of awareness, thinking ahead, and adapting to change.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've gone from those big bang strategic risks to the everyday slow burn of operational risk. We've explored the NIST framework and learned how to identify, assess, and mitigate those lurking threats.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. And through it all, we've seen just how crucial it is to have a plan, to communicate effectively, and to never underestimate the human factor.
And to remember, ORM is not about living in fear of what might go wrong. It's about empowering ourselves to make smart decisions and build resilience in an increasingly complex world.
So true. Well said. For the Deep Dive, I'm your host, signing off for today. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay ahead of those risks.